Well, hello. Welcome to the Labor and Work podcast, a KMC Center for the Study of Labor and Work at Auckland University in Michigan. I'm your host, Sue Fang Zhuang, Director of KMC Center and Associate Professor of Department of Organizational Leadership at Auckland University. Thank you for joining us. Each episode, we chat with industry professionals to share insight, trend, and actionable strategies to promote positive labor relations in an era of rapid social change. In this episode, we are discussing the relationship between labor and work in Industry 4.0. Joining us today, we have two special guests. First, Dan Stewart. He is Relationship Manager at Automation Alley. He brings influential academic, industry, and government professionals together to advance conversations that help business adopt transformative technologies necessary to stay competitive in a rapidly evolving landscape. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
Our second guest, Bethany Dwyer. She is Market Manager at Kelly Services. She has a track record of success in leading the Detroit metro market for Kelly Services in recruitment strategy, business operations, and workforce solutions. Welcome, Bethany.
Thank you for having me.
Industry 4.0 is not a new term. The term seems to be around for a while, and many is used in manufacturing. What do we mean by Industry 4.0? And how does it influence labor and work?
Yeah, I'll start with that question. When I hear Industry 4.0 or people talking about it, it's basically being referred to as our fourth industrial revolution. So it's essentially integrating digital technologies into manufacturing. It's changing our industrial processes. It's transforming virtually work from start to finish. And it has a major influence on labor and work because it enables us to get real-time data exchange, make very quick decisions, and it really optimizes all of the processes across multiple production chains.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Bethany, that's a good summary. Industry 4.0 for us refers to the digital transformation of manufacturing here in Michigan. We want to advance technologies like artificial intelligence, the industrial Internet of Things, IoT, if you will, additive manufacturing, or what other people know as 3D printing, technologies such as robotics, automation, and cybersecurity to create smarter and better connected and efficient factories. If you give me the indulgence of sharing a bit of a story here about, we at Automation Alley host these roundtables, and we invite very influential representatives of organizations to come and share how they're utilizing these technologies. GM is a regular attendee at Automation Alley roundtables, as is Kelly, among others. And they're sharing their insights about how they're transforming their factories into digital factories. And this brings about efficiencies and competencies that unrealized before on a level that just really brings about technological solutions to problems that would otherwise be intractable. Another one is the Oakland University ARC Center, or the Augmented Reality Center, where they explore XR in that domain. That came together through a partnership between Oakland University and Epic Games at a roundtable at Automation Alley. So the opportunities for I4.0 to advance are being promoted by, clients like Oakland University and General Motors. But it also shifts the nature of work from a repetitive manual task to something that's more data-driven. And then these become strategic roles at organizations. Workers then need to develop skills in those digital roles, and they need different tools and education to apply that to automation and data analytics. If you think about, a good entry point for small manufacturers today at Automation Alley, we often recommend embedded sensors because it's a simple and understandable and digestible technology. It does require, electronic connectivity. It does require AI, but it's really just gathering data that's built around, heat, frequency, vibrations, temperature. There's a few things that they're exploring in that domain, but that becomes understandable and digestible. So that's what we try and do by shifting the nature of work from a maintenance worker going out there and having a routine to letting the data give us that insight. And then, of course, the traditional factory floor, with its legacy systems, is now evolving. It's now becoming a tech-driven environment where human workers work in collaboration with machines and AI systems, leading to much more increased efficiency and new job roles. A good example of that is cobots in a manufacturing environment, working in tandem with human beings. Just a quick summary of how we look at Industry 4.0.
Yeah, that's a great summary. So really, it sounds like the impact of Industry 4.0 is way bigger than we probably could imagine. Makes me kind of wonder, what does Industry 4.0 mean for organizations or employers?
Yeah, for us, it comes down to competitiveness and innovation. So the companies that really embrace, and by the way, organizations that do embrace the technology can only do it successfully if they have unanimity among the C-suite representatives of the organization, because it impacts so many disparate areas of the organization. You've got to have compatibility that is available only through unanimity. Those that do adopt Industry 4.0 technologies do gain a competitive advantage. And consequently, the flip side of that is organizations that analysis paralysis, they just can't get out of that loop because they're frightened of the technology. They're going to suffer in the long run. So that's what Automation Alley is built around, is trying to share that insight about the adoption of digital technologies in ways that help organizations adopt them. And then, of course, another one is organizations, every organization has a supply chain. Let's be honest, if it can be simple, it can be complex, but supply chains require resilience in order for them to have, flexibility enough to meet the disruptions that we're seeing today. A great example during the pandemic was the supply chain became disrupted because there was no resiliency built into it. It was everything just in time. Well, Automation Alley is rethinking that. We're looking at bringing together enough manufacturers across Michigan to create a supply chain here in Michigan that can be a backup to the international one if necessary. So supply chain resilience is a big one. Another one is, data-driven decision-making. Organizations can leverage AI and big data to optimize production, reduce waste, and enhance product quality. So these are big factors in business today. A big one also is, if you haven't heard of it yet, it's called agentic AI. NVIDIA is kind of promoting that through a software that they have. And if you can come together with agentic AI in your organization, it takes data enterprise-wide and enables you to do amazing things with it. And then finally, cybersecurity concerns. As digitalization grows, so does the need for robust cybersecurity. We have to induce strategies to protect sensitive manufacturing data. The more we adopt these technologies, Sufang, the more we need protection, and those data points become vulnerabilities at organizations. So cybersecurity is a big factor for organizational success in the adoption of digital technologies like Industry 4.0.
They're really great points. I know here at Kelly, we have so many trainings about cybersecurity and protecting ourselves. That is a huge one here. I know it's like we have so much more risk out there, and there's so many more scams that look real and all of that stuff. So protecting ourselves is definitely very important. A couple other things I was going to add is, faster speed of product to market. I was reading, a couple articles, and they're talking about AI software that can predict if a machine is going down, and then being able to have solutions in place to fix that machine before it goes down. I've worked with customers, toured facilities, and they've had to shut down machines for months because they were waiting on a part, and so people were out of work, they lost money, they lost potentially customers because of it. So imagine being able to use some type of AI software to predict if a machine in your facility is going down. I thought that was pretty amazing. Also, also improved customer engagement. With smart technology, consumers can have more of a personalized and interactive experience. Think about designing clothing or designing a piece of furniture to see if it looks good in your home, or a paint color on your walls. Just the buying and selling experience overall is so much more interactive and engaging and really cool, in my opinion. And then lastly, operational efficiency and productivity. So, Industry 4.0, it will automate a lot of repetitive tasks. That has some positives with it, that it will reduce human error, which we all know human error has a major spiral effect, and it can help, reduce costs for companies because of reducing human error, and, helping with some environmental impacts that has with it too. So there are some really, really great positives of companies and organizations adopting to this new technology for sure.
Quickly, and just to follow on to your point about cybersecurity, and I heard a vulnerability story about a bad actor trying to access private information through an organization through the HR activity. Yeah, it comes through interviews. So, people who want to violate organizations' private data, they come in and they interview for a job, and they're qualified for that job because they know so much about that domain. And then they ask questions, and they get, framework built around it. And then a short time later, they find that they've been attacked from a cyber threat. And it comes through things as what you would think is innocuous enough as just a job interview for an employee.
And I guess with all the changes and in the industry, of course, none of this could be done without human labors. So what does Industry 4.0 mean for employees?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing new job roles being created for sure. So that will obviously create the need for what we call reskilling or retraining people in these new fields. We're definitely seeing a demand for skilled professionals, a lot of AI, a lot of robotics, data science, and cybersecurity, obviously, to just name a few. It will also, potentially give employees more flexibility when they're working. So maybe some more room for remote work, being able to operate from anywhere because of remote monitoring, virtual collaboration, and being able to oversee production through just different programs that will allow them to do that from anywhere. It will also create safer work environments for employees, less exposure to hazardous environments. If automation and robotics are taking over some of our dangerous jobs or physically demanding jobs, it will in turn reduce, risk of injury, less work comp issues, less risk for employees overall in the workplace.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with that as well. At Automation Alley, we see it more as a skills shift. Employees are still going to need some of the original skills that they have, but they're going to have to embrace some new technological competencies as well. These traditional roles are simply evolving at this point. They're going to be expected to adapt to these new skills, such as programming, machine learning, digital troubleshooting. Academics like Oakland University are moving towards stackable credentials, I think, in order to meet the granular needs of these manufacturing technologies today. We're proud to have Oakland University as a member of Automation Alley. But I think it also opens up opportunities as well. Industry 4.0 creates higher paying knowledge-based jobs, such as robotics technicians, cybersecurity analysts, and digital twin engineers. I'm old, right? So I go back to the 70s. I took a job in a manufacturing plant. It was a little podunk little shop in Clawson, Michigan, and I had a job there as a lathe operator. So I on this lathe, and then all of a sudden this big chunk of metal drops onto the manufacturing plant floor, and it's called a CNC lathe. What all about? So I wanted to be trained on that straight away. I've been a techie all my life, right? So I asked if I could be trained to work on that piece of equipment, which they did, and of course it upraised my wages as well. So opportunities, I think that we have to start sharing with organizations, that these aren't displacements; these are opportunities for better wages and higher skills. And then, of course, there's some challenges associated with this. Of course, transition may leave some workers behind if they don't embrace the technologies. And the reskilling opportunities. But this is where workforce development becomes essential. Unlike my job back in the 70s, when I had the opportunity to jump into a digital domain, there won't be a choice for future employees of manufacturing plant floors. It's kind of an all or nothing proposition that we're dealing with here. So they're going to have to make this adoption sooner than later and embrace the technologies.
That's great. That's great to know. So after all, we don't need to worry about we being replaced by robots, right?
Not however.
So then with all the information that we have right now, that kind of leading to the next one. So what are the risks and like opportunities or even challenges of this whole process of Industry 4.0 that we are facing right now?
Oh my goodness, that's a question that could take the entire half hour to answer, but I'll try and boil it down to just a couple points on each. With respect to risks, displacement of the workforce becomes, I think, the primary consideration that most businesses and employees are concerned about, right? Am I going to get displaced by a robot? It has the potential to do that, of course, but we're at the stage of the game where reskilling is a real opportunity right now. So employees need to embrace that opportunity, and businesses and academia need to offer those solutions as well. It could occur at the organizational level or through traditional methodologies like universities and colleges, but cyber threats become another big risk spot. As I discussed before, the entry points become a vulnerability. Increased digital connectivity is just essentially adding more vulnerability to your organization. So it's something to be concerned about. By the way, we've brought a number of Michigan manufacturers in the Automation Alley ecosystem into the domain of better, more robust cybersecurity just through partnerships with Oakland University on cyber grants and trainings. We did an assessment of businesses within Automation Alley to allow them to understand that, hey, guess what? We are vulnerable, and perhaps we should be working with some organizations to improve our firewalls and our safety within the organization. So cyber threats become a big factor as well. And then just, the adoption apprehension, as I said before, the fear of the adoption of the technologies becomes really a prohibitor of embracing technology. And those organizations that don't, as a consequence, are going to pay a price downstream. But we've brought many with respect to cybersecurity and, as I said, embedded sensors and some other technologies into the domain successfully just through the education program that Automation Alley offers. And some of the opportunities, I think, that are extant within the system today are, like Bethany referred to before, the productivity gains. We are going to have smarter factories, and those factories are going to be more efficient. They're going to save costs, and they're going to improve quality, which translates into that magic word for every one of our manufacturers in business today, and that's profitability. So the adoption of those technologies needs to be seriously considered sooner than later. New business models are also an opportunity of the creativity that comes from the alignment of softwares in this space. Again, going back to agentic AI there, I think is important. But, digital transformation enables companies to offer mass customization, productive maintenance, and data-driven services. Automation Alley has a little business within its organization called Project Diamond. And Diamond is an acronym. There won't be a test on this later, but the acronym stands for Distributed, Independent, Agile Manufacturing on Demand. And it's a great example of how Industry 4.0 technologies can change business models. What it does today is it brings together hundreds of disparate 3D printers that were given to small manufacturers across the Metro Detroit ecosystem. And they're all connected back to Automation Alley, which gives us scalability when we need to activate that equipment on behalf of a national emergency. And who doesn't remember PPE equipment and the rarity of it during the pandemic? That's something that we can do then for local governments and provide PPE during the next pandemic, because another one will be forthcoming, I'm sure. Not to be a pessimist, but it's the reality. And then, of course, the reshoring of manufacturing. Automation Alley, I mentioned before, provides a home for 4,000 manufacturers in Michigan, which also opens up the idea of being a supply chain resiliency mechanism for businesses. Using Industry 4.0 in that domain gives us a lot of flexibility, gives a lot of cyber protection, and in many ways, Industry 4.0 is leveling the playing field in manufacturing with the reshoring of that manufacturing. So what we can say about that is that those workers who had an advantage in foreign markets because of their low wages is now something that is being leveled. That playing field is being leveled through the adoption of technology here in Michigan. Some of the challenges I would say are, workforce upskilling. The biggest hurdle is ensuring where workers are equipped with the right skills for the digital economy. That's the fundamental catalyst, I believe, for most of the challenges. These workers, they've got so much more invested today in their employer. Unlike when I was, looking for a job, I took whatever was paying the highest wage. A lot of workers today, they're focused on meaningful employment, organizations that align with their ethics. And I think, in order to have higher wages, it isn't quite as important for those employees as making sure that the alignment with the organization is there. Standardization, lack of interoperability between different systems can slow adoption, but I think agentic AI can really solve that problem through the use of APIs.
I don't know how to follow up after that. That was amazing. Dan said it perfectly. Our low skilled workers, they may be at risk due to automation in their roles. So I think that is definitely one of the risks that we have. I think also, just making sure that we're seeing at Kelly for sure, we're seeing a larger demand in higher skilled jobs, higher paying jobs. I am concerned about what we call wage polarization, which is basically our higher skilled workers earn more, where our lower skilled workers earn less or stay the same, or potentially they have less opportunities. And so that is definitely something to watch, as we adapt more to this technology and as, we see it more in workplaces. But that is definitely, I think, a concern on many people's mind is, am I still going to be able to work here? Or is somebody else that has more skill or, something more automated take my job? And then what happens to me after that? I don't have these skills. I don't have this training. I don't have this knowledge. So where do I go from here? So we're definitely hearing and seeing that in the workplace for sure.
I'm sorry, just to add on to that, I love some of the initiatives that are ongoing at Kelly today. Peter Quigley has shared with me some insights with respect to workforce of convicted criminals, but nonviolent criminals in that space, and they become much more reliable workers than your traditional workers. They tend to hold on to their jobs a lot longer because they know the vulnerability of their record will come back if they play that space too often. But I love some of those initiatives, and there's many more I won't go into, but we're really proud to have Kelly share those insights with our workforce.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing those information. Really, I think in this area here, we can see a lot of initiative that really, people try to work to help and to continue to develop the workforce. So here is what we learned so far. So the advanced technological development empower employees to move away from routine job tasks, complement employees, and help unleash their full potential. Yet the human-machine integration can be a great social challenge affecting the continuous development of both humans and machines. So as the technology progress, the disruptive change in the current job skill set may result in intense and urgent need to focus on continuous learning and upskilling for workers. So from your perspective, who should, or maybe I should say, how do we develop the Michigan, I want to say maybe just all the Industrial 4.0 workforce and prepare for the coming Industrial 5.0?
Well, I think that it falls on a lot of different people to contribute, but I think, first I'll start with our state and local governments. We need to continue to invest in workforce training programs for sure. Potentially have incentives for companies that adopt this technology. Our community colleges and universities, we need to make sure that, we're staying up to speed on these degrees. We're offering certifications, associates, bachelors in automation, AI, robotics, data analytics, those types of degrees. And then for our vocational and technical schools, ensuring that we provide, hands-on training for manufacturing and technology-related careers. And something that I I love as a parent of young children in elementary school is introducing them to this technology early on. So we've definitely seen the adoption of STEM programs in our elementary and schools in Michigan. So getting them, introduced to coding and robotics and digital manufacturing to build a future of manufacturing and these type of jobs later on in their career. So introducing them to that technology early is so amazing. There's so many benefits from them being exposed to that. And then certainly, last but not least, making sure that we provide hands-on training for companies so that nobody is left behind. So we don't have employees have that feeling of where do I fit in all of this? What am I going to do? How do I learn and adapt? So just making sure that we're not leaving anybody behind, I think is extremely important as well.
Yeah, those are great points, Bethany. I also agree with that. It's important to bring, I call it the triad, industry, government, and academia together in order to advance solutions for businesses that are considering the adoption of technology. And it's so important to get them all together at the same time to address hurdles for the industry. One of which, of course, we're dealing with the transition to Industry 5.0 at Automation Alley, because that's the next thing. Automation Alley tends to look 3 to 5 years out, which makes us a bit different than some of the other organizations who are looking for, how do I make my business more, profitable today? How can I streamline my manufacturing operations? Automation Alley is looking what's coming down the road. That's why Project Diamond is so important at Automation Alley, because it's sharing technologies in the 3D printing space that we expect to hit the industry a few years down the road. But yeah, so industry, companies have to invest in training programs and apprenticeship models. That's just simply the bottom line. If industry isn't doing it, then we have to rely on, other training resources, which is fine at the university level. But I think the hands-on approach in industry is the best location for that training. Let's make businesses adopt those technologies and train those workforce solutions right there on that plant floor where the technology is going to be deployed. Government is another one. We have to get policy support, support for solutions that are driven by policy, funding, and initiatives that can help workforce development. Government plays a big role in this. Programs like Automation Alley's Project Diamond have a training program built around the idea of 3D printing. Subtractive manufacturing is what brought us to this point. Additive manufacturing is the new technology that's coming, and it's going to be disruptive. How are businesses going to adopt that? How do you design a product for an additive manufacturing solution as opposed to a subtractive manufacturing solution? And those are some of the trainings that are ongoing at Project Diamond at Automation Alley. And of course, education, universities, community colleges, trade schools, they all are important and need to align curricula with Industry 4.0 solutions. I'm optimistic. I sit on boards at various colleges and universities. I mentor entrepreneurships through entrepreneurship programs at academics, and I'm seeing more and more adoption of these digital technologies early on in the development of these technologies, and there are these small businesses that are growing within those domains. They're adopting digital technologies straight out of the gate, which is fundamentally different than small manufacturers across Michigan today, SMEs in the $5 to $25 million space, trying to determine what's the best entry point for them. It's fundamentally different. So education is hugely important in that space. And then, just the preparation for Industry 5.0 comes through the recognition that humans and machines have to work together. Industry 5.0 focuses on the synergy between human workers and AI automation. Cobots are a great example. And I don't even know if, Bethany, you're aware of this. I've been working with Kelly on the development of a program that will pair a human solution to a cobot that goes out to industry. Yeah, it's amazing, and it's very profoundly powerful. So those are great solutions in the human-machine collaboration space. And we call that, by the way, CaaS, so cobots as a service is kind of what we refer to it as. So, and then there's sustainability and social import, or impact. Future factories, are not only going to be efficient, but there's also a sustainability factor that's so important to future workers. As I articulated before, these are important considerations for worker satisfaction and long-term employee retention as well. And then, of course, lifelong learning. As all professors in academia know, you got to keep re-credentializing, and and that happens in many different professions. The law, dentistry, doctors, etc. So, lifelong learning shouldn't be something that we step aside from in the manufacturing domain as well. Change happens so quickly in this environment. The technologies come and go before many people even were aware of them. So it's important for lifelong learning to make sure that the credentials that are required to operate in a technological environment are reinforced and embraced moving forward.
Great suggestions. By incorporating AI and robotics into business operations, company can increase productivity and improve the efficiency. And of course, workers need to be upskilled and reskilled to remain competitive in the job market. And as both of you said, that industry, government, and education should really work together to develop the Industry 4.0 workforce and also kind of prepare our workers and even the younger generation for the Industry 5.0, which has stronger focuses on human centricity, real resilience, and sustainability. The workplace is evolving rapidly, as Dan just mentioned. So we really should work together to move forward, and no one should left behind. Quote from Bethany. Well, thank you so much, Dan and Bethany, for being the podcast. That's all for this episode, the relationship between labor and work in Industry 4.0. Thank you for joining us. We will catch you the next time.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity, Stefan.